All right, 40B election. Let's pull it up. A1. This happened Tuesday night. The results came out around 9 o'clock time frame. And on that first one, just drop down menu. It's only 140B. Yep, there you go. So Paul Wickstrom, the Republican candidate, 3,966 votes, which, by the way, was about 46% of the Republican vote in the last general election. So as we said in the show, if he was to get half of his voters out, half of the Republican voters out, and the Democrats, like in 50B in Bloomington in 2016, only got 24% of their people out, then he stands a chance to win. Now, you and I both kind of knew that Democrats weren't taking this one for granted. Right. Clearly they didn't. They actually had a larger percentage turnout. So they had like roughly 15,000 voters in the general election. So they turned out, come on, Jake, do the quick math. That's 60%?
Yeah, around that.
60%.
Less than 2/3. Yeah, so around 60.
Yeah, so 60%. And so anyhow, so the margin actually was wider because remember, we reported it's a 65-35 district.
Right.
It turned out to be
that was the results of the results of the general election in 2024 was 65-35. So what's unbelievable is, Republicans had spent all of this money, all of this effort, all of this door knocking and whatnot, only to underperform what they did in the 2024 general election, probably with a lot less effort and a lot less door knocking, a lot less things going on. So, it tells me that some of these voters, they were probably door knocked to death, to where some of them are getting annoyed with the fact that they're being door knocked. And this is a Democrat district. That's why I was telling people, don't get your hopes up. The Republicans totally let you down. The Republicans were the ones who told you, oh, let's pay attention to 40B, this Democrat district that we don't have a chance of winning in, but let's pretend like we do because it makes us feel better in the time being. And instead of dealing with 54A, where they threw away 21 ballots where we could win against Brad Tabke, instead the Republicans said, let's focus on 40B. And then they caved on the question of quorum. And then they caved on the question of how many votes it takes to pass a bill. The Republicans in the House shot themselves in the foot, and they're the reasons why it is now a tie 67-67 in the House. The House Republicans had a golden opportunity to give themselves power, but they chose not to. And Brad Ganser, $5 Rumble Rant, says, I am not sure what is worse, the epic waste of money or the futility of the operation. And I have to wonder myself, because all of this money was spent, and they underperformed what was done in 2020. The Democrats obviously were going to be turning out for this one. It determines whether or not the GOP has control. We wouldn't expect a GOP district to ever flip and go to the Democrats, even if the Democrats put in all this effort. Why? Because the base in that district doesn't, align with that party. So the Republicans gave false hope to people, and a lot of them are looking real dumb right now.
Okay, so let me push back just a little bit on what you're saying, because I don't think it's a complete waste. If you think of
it was pretend. That's why these state representatives are going out there.
I agree with that, but it's not a complete waste in the sense that if you look at political elections as a sporting event, let's just use football in this case. If you were to play football only once every 2 years, it's going to be rough. It's not. Teams got to train together and play regularly to be a well-functioning team, and so politics is generally, like political elections, is one every 2 years, right? So this gives an opportunity for some of your team to kind of perfect and hone their craft, okay? And in this case, this is a turnout election, so work on base turnout, okay? So in that sense, I don't think it's the biggest deal. It also makes your Democrat opponents have to spend money on it, because obviously if they did nothing, the Democrats would take it for granted and they would just pick this election off and not have to raise any money. So that would be the arguments against. And then I think you're also getting some new people who are new to campaigning that kind of get some real-world experience. Even if it's a loss, they get real-world experience that's translatable to a more winnable district like 54A. Okay, that's the opposite side.
Now, I'd agree with you on that, because I agree that Paul Wickstrom should run. And I agree that, there's all kinds of benefits that you get being able to build up a list, being able to have these voters for the future to be able to say during a governor or a U.S. Senate campaign in a statewide race where it's not dependent upon Roseville, where it's dependent upon the entire state, then absolutely those people come into play, and it's important to be able to be in contact with them. And it's good that Paul Wickstrom ran. I'm not saying that the Democrats should be given a cakewalk here, My problem is with the Republicans who convinced people that we were going to have a chance, that we had a chance at this thing, only for the Republicans to lose by 40 points. These Republicans should not have been lying to their voters.
All right, so pull up, what is it? Of course, Walter Hudson pipes in.
Yeah.
B3 Dawson. Walter Hudson pipes in. Actually, he's responding to, is this Brian Strasser?
Yeah.
Yeah, career Action for Liberty hater, Brian Strasser, by the way, who runs Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus.
We think it's a he/him. He calls himself a he/him, but
he's
he
a
looks
he/him.
like, he looks like a Danny Nadeau. He doesn't look like a man to me.
By the way, Brian Strasser and the Gun Owners Caucus literally gave money to the Democrat Party. They bought a booth at, they say, multiple conventions, at Democrat conventions, to try to change people's minds at the Democrat conventions. Literally, that money goes to the general fund of the Democrats so they can spend it to get Democrats elected. Like last I checked, Action for Liberty never did that. So anyhow, he says, so did Action for Liberty get out? And remember, this is after getting their ass handed to them by 40 points. He writes, so did Action for Liberty get out and door knock in 40B to help elect Paul Wickstrom? Make phone calls? This is my district. I was door knocked 5 times, a couple times by the campaign, once by the party BPOU, once by the Minnesota Family Council, and once by the DFL. And Walter, by the way, unprompted, like Action for Liberty didn't weigh in on his post, unprompted, because Walter can't get us out of his mind. Of course they didn't. Why would they? They're not interested in Republican victory, Republican majorities, or suppressing the power of Democrats. In fact, their success is tied directly to Democrat success. A4L shares the Democrats' goal of opposing Republicans. Think about this. One might look at this, Dawson, you're kind of a neutral guy, might look at this and go, actually, isn't Action for Liberty the smart one that said we're not going to win this race, right? So we're not going to waste money in door knocking.
Well, and also,
and you guys did.
If we did anything, it wouldn't have been enough for them anyway. But even if we did something, they would blame us for the loss. They'd say, well, obviously Paul Wickstrom's attachment to a radical group like Action for Liberty definitely hurt his chances. So there is no winning scenario for Action for Liberty in these people's minds.
Wait, hold on. Maybe they're making the argument that if Action for Liberty got in, they would have closed the 40-point margin.
I guess so. They think that Action for Liberty is so effective that they can flip Democrat
40
districts.
points.
Wow.
What argument are you making here, Wednesday Walter?
Yeah.
That was the question that I was going to ask, is any amount of money able to, like, surpass a difference like this?
It's what has to happen in this district, because it's a Democrat district.
You need 10,000 Republicans to turn out.
It's hard to control the opposition's turnout, but there are ways to do it, like they call it voter suppression, but essentially giving people reasons not to vote for their own candidate. Okay, this is what actually Democrats did infamously with Trump. Remember that commercial of the woman telling her husband, yeah, I'm voting the right way, and then she votes against? That was like trying to suppress is the wrong term here, but trying to get people not to vote the way their conscience tells them, right? Yeah. So that would be one play.
Well, and another thing is ballots in hand. Ballots in hand. You have to, there's a lot of people where they say, oh, yeah, I guess I support you. I want lower taxes and yada, yada, yada. But are they going to come out and vote? No, they're busy on election day. They got work. They got this and that to do. And so it's just not going to happen. So I know that mail-in ballots are not ideal, but that's definitely got to be a strategy for people to be able to pick up those votes, because if you tell them, how about you just fill out your ballot right now and we'll get it in for you, people are much more willing to do that.
Yeah.
That's not good, though.
So maybe if your focus was on hiring really good operatives, like high-dollar operatives, and they had to chase down all the Republican ballots, but the reality is you're never going to get 100% of Republicans to vote in something. And in this case, with these numbers, assuming the Democrats had their turnout like that, you needed 100%. No, go back to that.
It'll take me half a second to pull up.
Yeah,
it was 9,000. I take that back.
Well, that's the thing.
There's even what the Democrats turned out, which was 60%,
over 100,
was more than 100% of the Republicans in that district.
Right, exactly.
So
Paul
almost
Wickstrom,
nothing could have won that district.
Right.
Which, by the way, once again makes Action for Liberty kind of smart for not getting involved.
Right. In 2024, Paul Wickstrom got 8,460 votes.
Yeah.
So that means that even if he had 100% of the people who turned out to vote for him in the general election, with Trump on the ballot and everything else going on, even with all of that going on, those votes wouldn't have beaten David Gottfried. And it tells us that the Democrats had no fear about this. They understood that they could put up a radical, that the people of Roseville are willing to go along with it. I mean, let's be honest, these people are sheep. The Democrats really don't care. As long as they feel like their identity checklist is being hit, they're willing to go along with it. So all of these Republicans who are being bitter at Action for Liberty for the fact that they just lost by 40 points after getting everyone's hopes up. Let's be honest, that Walter Hudson and Josh Heinzman, I know they went out and did some door knocking. I wonder how many doors they actually knocked. But that in mind, I really doubt that they convinced a single voter. I really doubt that they got one voter to flip their mind, or they got a single voter who was not planning on voting to vote. Right. I bet all they did was, get someone who was conservative that said, oh, yeah, I like Paul Wickstrom, and they call it a success. But is it a success when they lose by 40 points after telling everyone that they were going to win? I see S-Stud89 says, HRCC members sold the false sense of hope to fundraise. None of those reps could have had the possibility. Could have possibly thought that they were going to win. They were lying to raise money to use against endorsed candidates, as they do. And I'm sure the HRCC was collecting money from the members of the House, and I'm sure that there were people, I'm sure they had ads and whatnot out there to get from the grassroots as well, to tell the grassroots, we can win this thing. And same thing with the candidates. I guess they were maybe convincing some of the representatives, oh, we could win this thing with your help. But are we supposed to trust the HRCC? And especially not after the last few election cycles where they use it against endorsed candidates. So S-Stud89 is right on with the critique.
This show's called The Truth Hurts, by the way. Sometimes it's hurtful to tell you the truth about these things, but there are certain elections, certain districts that just aren't going to go the way you want them to go. It's just a sad reality. By the way, I just thought of this. One other interesting argument against Walter here, Wednesday Walter, that is, using his logic, where was he in the Senate District 60 election?
Yeah.
Does he not want Republicans to get elected?
No,
the reality is what Walter will never tell you is, we can't win in Minneapolis, so they didn't spend any time campaigning in Minneapolis.
No, I think he, at the very least, he posted something about Abigail Walters.
Yeah.
So,
but
I think, but I don't want to misstate it. I think he was there. I don't want to.
Yeah, but he definitely didn't put the effort in there.
Oh, yeah, definitely not. Where she got 9% of the vote, I think, in that Senate district.
Correct,
race.
yeah. It's just like, that's the reality, is you're smarter off, if you want to survive in politics for any length of time, you're smarter off saving your resources for a better fight. Right.
And 54A was the fight that the Republicans didn't give us. Action for Liberty was on top of it the entire way. The Truth Hurts was on top of it the entire way. But instead of giving the Republicans a fight where they could actually win, they let everyone down, said that Brad Tapke could be seated. They do not care about election integrity, and they underperformed the results of the general election in an election where they were telling us we were going to win. It's a joke.